Good afternoon and welcome to this Thursday, January 10th edition of Westman Newsline. I'm Dylan Donald alongside Sarah Francis and Randy Joseph Lilly. In today's news, we'll take a look at how business at a local sports bar is expected to pick up now that the NHL lockout is over. As well, Judge Shauna Hewitt-Michta's busy week continued in a Brandon courtroom. And Sarah will be in with sports. Sarah, I hear today is a big day in the Western Hockey League.
That's right, Dylan. It's trade deadline day in the WHL. I'll bring you some details about that. Plus, a Wheat King is on the move. I'll tell you where he is going and who is coming in return later on in sports.
Thanks, Sarah. And Randy will be in with weather. Randy, I'm going to make you practice your counting skills once again today. In 2 words or less, how's the weather?
2 words. Not good. Currently in Brandon, it is cloudy and -5. There is a slight breeze out there and not much chance of precipitation, but sadly, you'll really need to bundle up. I'll tell you about it later on in weather.
A 14-year-old Brandon girl received 1 year probation after her attack on a classmate. Judge Shauna Hewitt-Michta charged the teen with assault on Monday and has also ordered the 14-year-old to write a sincere letter of apology to her target. Defense lawyer Philip Siklicki said his client had been bullied by the victim and finally took action on November 19th. It is said a rumor was started by the victim about the girl who was charged, saying something about her being in an assisted living class. The girl walked into the lunchroom at Crocus Plains High School, shouted out, "You're a liar," before throwing multiple punches to the victim's head. Court heard the 14-year-old girl suffers from depression and may be bipolar, and that she has also been banned from her school. The 2 girls involved have been classmates since kindergarten, but have never seen eye to eye. One of the pioneers of the Canadian internet pharmacy industry have been sentenced to 4 years in prison by a Miami court. Andrew Strempler started Canada's first large internet pharmacy in Minnedosa in 2001. He was sentenced for 3 counts of mail fraud between 2005 and 2006. Strempler pleaded guilty to misrepresenting the country of origin on the labels of prescription drugs sold into the United States. Strempler was once profiled by the New York Times as a rich man who went out of his way not to disguise his wealth. Gaston Janai set a stranger on fire because he wouldn't give him a cigarette, then stood by munching on donuts as his victim burned. Disturbing new facts about that September 2010 attack were presented yesterday inside a Winnipeg courtroom. Janai, who is 22, was given a life sentence with no chance of parole for at least 10 years after pleading guilty to second-degree murder. Jared Dumas suffered serious burns to much of his body after being doused in a flammable substance and set ablaze while walking in an alley. Manitoba parents need more information about the risks of sleeping with their babies. That's one of the recommendations of the Manitoba Children's Advocates in the office's 2011-2012 annual report. Children's advocate Darlene McDonald said while it's popular, parent and infant bed sharing raises the risks of infants being smothered by bedding or parents. Other hazards include entrapment as well as overheating. She said there have been instances of caregivers who have accidentally rolled over on their infants during sleep or while intoxicated. McDonald said her office has investigated 7 such cases between 2005 and 2011, and in the past year her office has seen 1 death. An outbreak of influenza over the past 2 weeks is placing a strain on Winnipeg hospital emergency departments. Dr. Michael Rutledge, Chief Provincial Public Health Officer, said Wednesday it looks as though Manitoba is in for a normal to slightly busier than normal flu season. He says the numbers have just started to peak in the last week or 2. The province issued a statement Wednesday afternoon encouraging Manitobans to get the flu shot as flu cases rise nationally. It said the number of reported laboratory-confirmed cases continues to rise rapidly, and Heidi Graham, a spokeswoman for the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority, said traffic at hospital emergency departments has risen sharply in recent days, with many visitors complaining of flu symptoms. The Manitoba government says it's close to announcing a strategy on peat mining. Conservation Minister Gord McIntosh made the statement yesterday after an environmental group dropped off more than 800 sign cards from Manitobans demanding a ban on peat mining in the province. The Wilderness Society says the mining negatively affects water quality by releasing sediment into streams and creeks and releases carbon that contributes to climate change. McIntosh says in regard to the ban, the government must balance environmental and economic interests. The NHL lockout is now over, and the flickering images of professional hockey in action will soon be back on the screens of a local sports bar right here in Brandon. Tamara Pimentel went to the Double Decker Tavern to find out how the NHL's return will affect the business and its customers.
On Saturday, news was released that had hockey fans ecstatic. The NHL lockout is over. This was not only good news to the fans, but some local businesses here in Brandon as well. At the Double Decker Sports Bar, there were a lack of customers while the lockout was still in place. Manager Faizan Shalwani thinks there will be a huge improvement in his business when the season is back on.
Since the NHL lockout, it's been affected a little bit because people pretty much go to the Wheat Kings game or they watch Wheat Kings on TV. And we have the Jets channel, so people can come here and watch the game for free. And we do have specials when the NHL is on, such as beer burger specials.
The end of the lockout does have a positive effect on the business. Customers believe that being able to watch the game for free and entering the draws is a perfect excuse to go out with friends and have a good time.
Yeah, I would totally go to the bar now. They got those big screens there, so I can watch the game and bring all my friends. It'd be a great time.
I know that the NHL lockout has a huge effect on patrons of the bar because how are we supposed to really enjoy a hockey game these days?
The NHL season will begin January 19th. For Westman Newsline and photographer Christopher Nicholson, I'm Tamara Pimentel.
And with that news of business hopefully on the upswing, let's take a look at where today's money markets are currently sitting.
Westman Newsline, produced by the IMA Media Production students of Assiniboine Community College. Local news, weather, and sports on Brandon's only TV newscast, Westman Newsline, airing at 1 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on WCG TV.
Turning to international news now, Vice President Joe Biden kicked off his gun violence task force Wednesday by meeting with gun safety groups and gun violence survivors. Today he sits down with the representatives from the National Rifle Association. Ed Payne has the story.
The National Rifle Association has made its position clear: no new gun laws. The organization has actively lobbied to prevent any new legislation limiting guns, saying we should enforce the gun laws already on the books. But Vice President Joe Biden made it clear that the White House intends to take action to reduce gun violence.
If the president is going to act, or executive orders, executive action that can be taken, we haven't decided what that is yet, but we're compiling it all with help of the Attorney General and all the rest of the cabinet members, as well as legislative action we believe is required.
With the gun debate heating up, gun and ammunition sales are heating up as well. Many gun enthusiasts are stocking up on weapons and ammo, fearing they could be outlawed. Jay Wallace, an ammunition distributor in Atlanta, has seen a big boost in sales.
This is probably, in my lifetime, in my business lifetime, there's been more demand for ammunition than there's ever been. We're having law enforcement agencies that are coming in buying ammunition off the shelf.
Walmart, the nation's largest retailer, now says its executive will also meet with Biden's gun violence task force. They initially had declined. I'm Ed Payne reporting.
They have to reach out. They reached out to us and said we want to participate because this is a moral issue as well.
Large swaths of southern New South Wales and Australia were threatened Wednesday by raging flames, the severity of which has surprised even veteran firefighters. Outside the town of Yass, flames swept rapidly across more than 40,000 acres of farmland and up to the fence around Catherine Frith's house, where its march was halted. Thanks to firefighters, the town of Tarcutta in southwestern New South Wales escaped by a whisker, the fate suffered by Frith's sheep. A blackened line stops just outside the town of 200 residents. That's it for news, but stay tuned. Randy's up next with Newsline Weather.
Good afternoon with Newsline Weather. I'm Randy Joseph Lilly. They announced the nominations for the Oscars today, so we will try and keep a film theme for the rest of this cast. We are going to find some silver linings in this cold weather and find the Lincoln, if I keep doing this, I'll be Les Miserables, Currently in Brandon, it is cloudy and -5 degrees. Not much wind, and thus we'll move on. This evening, we'll see -5 again. The sky will be mainly cloudy with the winds out of the northeast at 25 kilometers per hour. Overnight, close those windows. We'll see -11 and flurries. Winds will remain the same at 25 kilometers per hour. Taking a look at our radar image now, not a whole lot of anything here. But turning to our satellite image, you'll see absolutely nothing. And then look out, heavy cloud cover out of nowhere. And now our 5-day forecast. There will be a mix of sun and cloud throughout this period. As well, you'll see some unpleasant low temperatures there, but with the wind chill, it'll be much worse each day. On Monday, it'll feel like -32. Now taking a look around the region first, Brandon, Carberry, and Treeherne, there is a winter storm warning in effect. Winnipeg's in at -2, Portage in at -6, Dauphin as well as Minnedosa are in at -5, Neepawa and Carberry are in at -4, Verdon's in at -3, Killarney is at -2. Seasonal norms for this time of year are a high of -13 and a low of -24. The record high was set way back in 1990 when Batman was dominating the box office when we saw 4.4 degrees. Every record low this week was set back in 1993 when Schindler's List won an Oscar, and on January 10th it was -39.7. Once again in Brandon, it's cloudy and -5 degrees. Don't go anywhere. That's it for weather, but Sarah's up next with Newsline Sports.
Good afternoon with Newsline Sports. I'm Sarah Francis. In breaking news, authorities in California say a student was shot and wounded in a San Joaquin Valley High School today, and a suspect was taken into custody. The shooting occurred at about 9 a.m. at Taft Union High School, an oil and agricultural community about 120 miles northwest of Los Angeles. Kern County Sheriff Department spokesman Ray Pruitt said the student who was shot was flown to a hospital in Bakersfield. There was no immediate word on the victim's condition. Pruitt says the suspect in custody, aiding the person is believed to be a student. He says it was believed a shotgun was used in the attack. Today is trade deadline day in Westman Hockey League. All teams looking to improve their rosters for a second half surge must complete their trades by 4 o'clock this afternoon. So far, it's been a light day in the trade market, but we're keeping a close eye on the Brandon Wheat Kings, where 20-year-old Michael Furland is said to be one of the top names on the trade list. We can tell you that 17-year-old defenseman Atron Nickel has been traded to Everett Silvertips. In return, the Wheats received 18-year-old defenseman Nick Walters and the rights to Yellowhead Chiefs forward Taylor Shannon. Steroid-tainted stars Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Sammy Sosa have been denied entry to baseball's Hall of Fame, with volunteers failing to elect any of the candidates for the second time in 4 decades. Bonds received just 36.2% of the vote, Clemens 37.6%, and Sosa 12.5% in totals announced Wednesday by the Hall and Baseball Writers Association of America. They were appearing on the ballot for the first time and have up to 14 more years to make it to Cooperstown. The judge who sentenced Jerry Sandusky to at least 30 years in prison is about to hear defense lawyers and prosecutors argue over whether the former Penn State assistant football coach got a fair trial. Sandusky says that John Cleland should have issued jury instructions about how long it took the victims to report abuse. He's also challenging hearsay testimony by a janitorial supervisor who told jurors that co-worker had seen Sandusky raping a boy. Sandusky is serving 30 to 60-year state prison sentence, but maintains his innocence and is pursuing appeals. The Jacksonville Jaguars have fired coach Mike Mularkey for 1 season. After 1 season, the worst in franchise history, new general manager David Caldwell made his announcement today. Mularkey's Jaguars went 2-14 this season, and his job was considered on thin ice after the team fired GM Gene Smith last weekend. And Dylan, that's it for sports.
Thanks, Sarah. And that's all we have for you today, but be sure to join us again tomorrow for Brandon's only TV newscast, Westman Newsline.